Hello, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Nick Zulovich, part of the team at Cherokee Media Group and senior editor of Subprime Auto Finance News. Thank you very much for spending part of your busy day with us for our session titled Use of LPR to Streamline Collections and Recovery Efforts, featuring Mike Villanova, Senior Sales Solution Manager at DRN. Before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. We are recording today's session, so keep watch of your inbox for a message containing a link to it. That way you can review the great information Mike is about to share and pass it along to your colleagues as well. Mike will also take some questions, so you can just use the chat function here on Zoom if you have any to pose to our expert here today. So that's enough from me. Let's get right to our presentation. Use of LPR to streamline collections and recovery efforts with Mike Villanova of DRN. Mike, take it away, sir. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much, Nick. It's always great to spend some time with you, and appreciate you getting us all together to talk a little bit about what DRN and the action that we have going on in inside of the collections and recovery world. To that end, I just want to kind of jump ahead, let you know a little bit about me. Yeah, I've been at DRN going on 8 years now, so I've been working with Courtney and Jeremiah and the entire DRN team. So we've seen a lot of changes over those years in terms of how we've advanced, but yet how the finance market has gone into and out of the pandemic, which upheaved a lot of people's collection processes, and we think that it's on the path of normalizing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to start out today by giving everybody kind of an overview of what LPR is. And so, license plate recognition technology is a vital tool across many different industries. So using LPR data, DRN's LPR data, with the right best practices, and we suggest those as part of our DRN client support team, offers countless advantages to collection teams in cost savings, efficiency of time, and improved portfolio management. So we think that really that alone and the challenges that collections have is really imperative to start using our data as early as possible. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we gather that data. So DRN, DRN, the LPR technology uses a network of recovery affiliates across the states to capture publicly visible license plate data using high performance mobile LPR cameras that can be leveraged across many industries, transforming the way business operates and ensuring superior details. So DRN has a dedicated affiliate team that is dedicated to assisting hundreds of DRN agents who are the best and most compliant agents in the industry. What makes them best is that they have invested in technology to service their clients. So DRN agents currently scan now in excess of 230 million vehicles a month, exceeding pre-pandemic levels. So how these scans have evolved over time is, prior to the last 4, 5, 6 years, they used to install these cameras on tow trucks. And those tow trucks, when they were going to pick up these agents who are the backbone of our data collection process, they would be scanning every time they went out for any lender's repossession, they would be scanning with these cameras on these tow trucks. Along that time, they figured out that they can mount these cameras in spotter cars, and it makes them the ability to, one, save time and money because it's expensive to drive around with a tow truck with the cameras, plus the investment of those cameras. But they use the spotter cars now because now they can get into many different locations that they couldn't get into before. Some are even putting them inside the car so they can get into gated communities. They can do a much more efficient in terms of scanning not only in their local areas, but they can expand their coverage areas, and they provide greater coverage and more access to their, as they're running for one lender, they may be scanning a vehicle that would pop up as out for repo from another lender. So it makes them much more efficient. But the data that they gather is really what's important. So as far as where LPR data might be useful, it's certainly used in many different industries. For instance, insurance and insurance fraud, detecting insurance fraud. Certainly organized retail crimes, very interested in the data that we gather around these cameras, as well as commercial marketing type data is also very useful in gathering the almost 20 billion historical scans. But for this conversation today, we're really going to talk about how using LPR data and vehicle location data, more importantly, in collections helps spearhead and drive better repossession and recovery efforts from the not only the finance company and all the way through to the agents themselves. So moving it in the delinquency timeline early on. At this point, I wanted to take a stop. Nick was going to ask a couple of poll questions, or one poll question at this time. Nick, you want to take over and do that?
Yep, it's there on the screen for everybody.
Oh, you got it. Okay. You just let me know when we can continue.
And again, the question is, what are your average net new monthly repossession assignments? And there's 4 choices there on the screen: 0 to 10, 11 to 25, 25 to 50, or more than 50. And we'll give everyone just a few more moments to respond to that question before we show the results. So thank you everyone for participating. And Mike, here are the results. It looks like it's an active time.
This is exactly what Nick and I were talking about earlier before we were jumped on to the webinar, is that we have certainly heard from a number of folks that we being the DRN inside sales team would be reaching out to talk about how we can offer services around data collection and use of to improve the recoveries and reduce the charge-offs and delinquencies. But now people are calling us. In the second quarter this year, we've had a number of folks who thought our solution was really neat and timely, and now they're calling us because they see what's coming in front of them. So we're going to talk a little bit about monitoring early delinquencies, using our data early in the delinquency waterfall process, and then comparing what your system of record talks about versus where we've actually seen the vehicle located, and then why using LPR early in the delinquency helps you when you do have to go down to that repossession activity. Using a strong address based on where we've seen the vehicle is certainly going to help your local agents be able to run in a timely fashion and do more recoveries and cover more areas for you. So streamline collection efforts. So we offer, it's a web-based solution. So there's a lot of vendors out there that we deal with, some of our clients and prospects who are always hesitant to move forward with our solution because they didn't want to involve IT. There's just too much in terms of getting a project in the IT roadmap. So over the course of the last 12 years, we've developed a web-based solution. So literally, once we get through whatever agreement process we have to go through to bring you on board, we can have you up and running and monitoring your portfolios inside of a couple of short days. So you can have as many people as you want to access the solution through web-based. And again, because the user interface is all web-based, it is very much your solution. No other, we don't share data with anybody else across different clients. So the instance inside the web-based solution is yours and yours alone. And so anything that you monitor in there really can pay dividends the further along you go in that delinquency waterfall. The real idea is to try to help you locate your collateral. It's your collateral after all, and we're going to show you a little bit of some of the reasons why or how you can make some strategic decisions as you go down that first payment default all the way down through repossession order and recovery. So again, we provided all the way through the waterfall and as early as first payment default. So here's an example of a loan life cycle. So we're hearing more and more of our clients who are starting to do modeling and analytics around the risk, because as you know, there's a lot of challenges out there in the loan market right now. Interest rates have started to spike. The cost of new and used vehicles are certainly remaining high. They're trying to extend a month, the terms of the loan out from 60 to 72 to 84, and all of that. What that means to a lender who's looking to fund a loan is that you may have to take on more risk, and taking on more risk comes naturally. There's certain percentages, and every time we talk to the lenders, they always kind of use deficiencies as a percentage of their overall book of business. Well, the more you grow in your portfolio, the more that percentage now becomes a number that's could become painful in terms of charge-offs and costs to whether or not you're a credit union or a bank or a buy here, pay here. We have all different sizes of clients, but the idea of using your portfolio earlier in that process to do some risk modeling and analytics to kind of point out where you may have, and it could be that you can take a deeper dive into the pool. So instead of near prime, you may want to go to grow your portfolio down to a subprime provider or go to indirect. So the modeling really helps us be able to show you where we've seen the vehicle versus where you may be providing the capital to create that loan. And then once you get into collections, we look at that as all these activities that help you be proactive in your delinquency management and your portfolio management. The idea of using our data early is really about being more using this data point, because there's a lot of data points you use and a lot of activities that you use to try to make that right party contact with a debtor. If we can help you debunk an address that you know from your system of record where I live and where I work, you fund the loan and you service that loan, hopefully to the end. But if it goes delinquent, one of the first things we can help you show is if you're monitoring that VIN. And again, all we really need is the VIN to do this monitoring, because we'll go out and plate it and we'll show you a look back of a year of historical data, which helps you identify whether or not you have a risky situation. And if you do, you could advance that recovery process and pass good addresses over to your agents, which they'll be happy to take, because one of the reasons why, one of the biggest challenges they have is, running bad addresses, when using our data early could really pinpoint where that address is. So collections can certainly use it all the way down. And then when you get into the repo and the repo process, using again the analytics and that to go ahead and prevent some charge-offs, the idea of pointing it to a good address or at least identify those that are risky. And then later on, we'll talk a little bit about post charge-offs and deficiency collections, and how oftentimes if you do have to charge something off and no one's out there looking for it, maintaining it in your own system gives you the opportunity to potentially find it's a kind of a bluebird. It drops in because that borrower all of a sudden feels like they're emboldened. You haven't caught up with them. Now they're taking their car out on a nice sunny day. And there's enough cameras out there in this market today that we're going to eventually spot that. And you could, I can't tell you how many clients have had post charge-off recoveries when they had already charged it off, some as often as 6 months down the road. So the purpose here is really let you know that being proactive in your delinquency timeline by using our data just adds another feather into your toolbox of another tool into your toolbox for trying to be proactive in your delinquency management. An example of that is low risk. So our scans, someone's gone delinquent, you put it in your system to start monitoring. We immediately plate that vehicle, and then we match those plates and that VIN to our historical scans. We pull back 12 months of the historical scans. You as a user in the collection team goes back and looks at the system of record where I live and where I work. We're going to show you where we spotted the vehicle. If that vehicle is in the neighborhood, general neighborhood, because sometimes they park a couple of streets away when they know that you're coming after them. But if they're in the general neighborhood, well, maybe you continue your collection activity prior to going down the repossession route to see if you can make that right party contact and cure the loan, extend the terms or whatnot. But at least you know that your collateral is somewhere where you expect it. So that is a low risk versus a high risk, where in this scenario, you expect them to be in Fort Worth and they're not even nowhere near there. All of our scans are in the northeast Dallas, and they haven't called you up and told you that. Or worse than that, they've gone from Texas to Florida or California to Texas, in which case that's a high risk. So you may accelerate your collection activity and use the scans and the vehicle location data that we have to then put it out either through a forwarder or ultimately to the agent, who would immediately go and try to recover your vehicle. But this is just an example of being proactive early in the delinquency to make a determination as to, are they where I expect them to be, or are they somewhere else that I don't expect them to be. But oftentimes, not only are we showing you all the scans we have in good locations, and we score those locations by giving you an address score, and a 4-digit address score is really 4 digits that are time buckets, 0 to 30 days. How many times have we seen the vehicle at that address in 0 to 30 days is the first score. The second score is how many times have we seen it 31 to 90 days, 91 to 180 days, and 101 to 365 days. So if that comes back as a 9999, you're pretty sure that that collateral is always going to be where you expect it to be. However, it comes back to 0000. Those could be one-offs that they're in the neighborhood. They may be going to a big box store or a Home Depot or the Lowe's department store, or even their favorite restaurant. But the idea is that if they're in the neighborhood of where you expect them to be, then you can at least have some confidence that you know where your collateral is, because we're really just scanning the vehicle location data. You have to make the connection back to the member from your system of record, but at least we can show you where we spotted that vehicle, give you not only that, but we give you a number of data analytic points, when the date, the time and the date it was scanned, the agent who scanned it, also a picture of the plate and a picture of the car. So you know exactly where these vehicles are for the last 12 months, which oftentimes paints a picture as to what your risk is and what you need to manage from your delinquency. Why that's important, I want to thank our friends at RDN for sharing these slides with us. We've seen a number of declines, and I'm not sure if anybody on the call has felt the same of these decline rates. Primarily declining because, one, the cost of our agents and the backbone of those who gather our data, the cost just to run a tow truck or a spotter car, and the employee costs and the insurance costs and the diesel costs. So if they don't get a good address, they may only run it once or twice and then just decline it because they just don't have the time and the energy or the cost to be able to get out there and run those. So they'll decline them. So it really paints more of a picture of using skip tracing early in terms of using our vehicle location data early in order to be able to send a good address over to your repossession agent, whether or not that's through a forwarder or directly to a local agent. The better the addresses are, they're going to run your stuff all day long because they know that you've done the effort to help them at least save them time and money. The other side of it is, again, RDN provided information here, shrinking agent network. The agents, we support our agents tremendously, but the agents, it's a dangerous job. And so a lot of agents over the course of the last 5 years, the population of agents that are out there has shrunk. So not only are they running your repossession assignments, but they're running a lot of others. And the idea that you could just work directly with a local agent without doing some of this due diligence up front. The data's there, you might as well use it. They'll be happy to run your repossession assignments, but there's less of them. And as you know, the agent population is a dangerous job, so we're there to support them, and they'd much rather go to a sure thing than something that's going to put them in a dangerous situation. Wanted to show you some of the other side of it. So on the left, we have the type, lender, forwarder, repo agent. Our cameras, so our repo agents, they get to keep scans that they take with their own cameras. So if you think of a pizza pie and there's many slices, nationally, we have hundreds of agents who have our cameras, have made the investment. They get to keep the scans they have with their own cameras. As a enterprise account lender, we're going to let you see not only that agent scans, but every other agent scans as well. But the idea there is so that you can pass good addresses over to them. And the idea that you can also use historical data to do what I said earlier, being proactive, to reach out and try to make that right party contact so that at least you have a conversation prior to have to go to recovery. But if you didn't have access to our data, we shut off the historicals, and now you just become a true live pickup provider. So it's kind of a point forward. When you put your order out, you're going to, if they see it from the point forward of the time it becomes active in our live pickup, that's when they'll pick up your vehicle. But as a lender, you're never going to see the actual scans themselves. But through our UI, you have access to not only the scans, but the actual mapping into a Google Earth map. So you can do a number of different things with that. Also wanted to just point out, an end-to-end solution. DRN was acquired by Motorola Solutions almost 5 years ago now. They also required MVTrack. However, with DRN, we're just a data analytics company. So we have all of those, again, over a delinquency timeline. Those types of solutions we provide from the DRN side of the house. From an end-to-end solutions, MVTrack is just another recovery service provider, tightly integrated, obviously, through DRN. But the idea that we can do portfolio analytics, risk scoring, active duty alert monitoring, so you're not inadvertently repossessing a service member who may be overseas. Loss alerts, I'll talk a little bit about that. That's an ancillary product that really pays for itself. We added SKIPTRACE to help you identify known associates and next to kin. It's primarily exactly what you're doing today with your SKIPTRACE providers, your public record data providers. We're pulling information. We don't store any of that information as it relates to PII information. It's just pulling straight from a public record provider and showing you your borrower's information as well as known associates and next to kin. It certainly helps when you can't find any scan collateral. And then vehicle search, which is our backbone LPR activity. Here's just an example of the DRNsights Plus features with SKIPTRACE. We're going to show you the name. We masked over all the names, but here's an example of all the information that we could pull back. And this is exactly like you would pull from your public record provider: who I am, name and address, email address, and phone numbers if we have the public records data has it out there. So that's just another way of getting into trying to be proactive to make early detection of how risk that particular delinquency is, and then who you may have to try to track down because they're part of a public records data pull. I know there's a lot of information. We provided a lot of data in here, and we really appreciate it. One of the last things I wanted to talk about is loss alerts. So I mentioned that it's ancillary. We have a number of clients who use our loss alerts product to monitor across their entire portfolio, their entire auto portfolio. And we run this on a nightly basis. And all it's required to load data in here is the VIN, the 17-digit VIN. We go out and plate it. You can put the plate in if you know it, but we go out and plate it. And we monitor from our data provider anything that happened in the prior 24 hours in each one of these categories. whether or not it's been impounded, total loss and salvage, reported stolen, or scheduled to be exported on a container ship out of the country. We're just about to launch a collision data alert, which repair shops, when one of your borrowers may bring the vehicle in to have an estimate on some collision damage. We're just about to launch that, so keep an eye out for that, but that should be coming in Q4. But the impounds alone, as most of you know, you're getting your impound notifications via U.S. Postal. U.S. Postal has always been late and coming later and later. And the impound yards typically, they may not get around to sending that piece of paper through the mail. Most states have a requirement to report within 48 hours each one of these 4 categories. If we run it every night, we've had some of our clients do an internal champions challenge, and they save anywhere from 7 to 10 days of impound fees by taking immediate action when they come in the morning to see if any activity in these 4 categories happened from the previous day. If it had, and they've taken action, oftentimes savings alone in here in these categories pays for the cost of the subscription. And again, it's a subscription-based model, so it's a flat fee spread across 12 equal payments, and that allows you to, from a budgeting point of view, you're not having any fluctuations up and down of costs associated with this product. But again, it allows you to use it often, and we encourage it through not only our onboarding team out of Fort Worth, we encourage you to monitor anything that's 30 days past due, so that you can do that debunking of the addresses and passing those addresses down to the right party, to your right, either your agent or your forwarder, but also to use these impound, salvage, theft, and exports every day, because those are going to save you time and money as well. So the idea really behind it, in summary, is our data is available for lenders to be better stewards as they pass information down to their repossession vendors, whether or not that's a forwarder or an agent. The agents are the backbone, but using our data early is certainly a data point that collections should really consider using as they go forward, if the prognosticators are accurate in their predictions that everybody's spending money this summer, their bank accounts are starting to dwindle, the credit cards debts are higher. The next that's going to hit are the delinquencies are going to continue to rise in the auto space. So it's better they always say it's better to fix the roof when it's sunny out versus when it's raining out. So we would use that same analogy when you think about using DRNsights data early in the delinquency. I hope you found that useful. If there's any questions that you want to toss out there, we can certainly address those. And like Nick said, we're going to have a couple more questions at the end here, but we'll send you a link to watch this again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. And the first closing poll question is there on the screen for you to participate in if you'd like. How likely are you to implement DRN's data solution? And there are 3 options there for you to choose from within the next 30 days before we end the year, or some points in 2024. So again, we thank Mike Villanova of DRN for our expert presentation. Use of LPR to streamline collections and recovery efforts. And we thank you again for participating in the poll. And Mike, it looks like we've caught some interest here, and stemming from our opening poll question with repossession assignments on the rise, getting some more information in the pipeline seems like a high priority on the to-do list.
Yeah, I think, again, the data, and it's when you think about 20 billion historical scans, we're adding it to 230, 240 million a month. It's just really a numbers game. It's eventually, there's so many cameras out there, fixed and mobile cameras, that are scanning everybody. You can't go to the store without going through an intersection that has cameras on there. So eventually we're going to see and spot those vehicles. So using that data early in the delinquency is really something collections could help augment their challenges.
Very good. And we have one more poll question to round out our webinar today. If you would be interested in a one-on-one consultation with DRN, whether it's Mike Villanova or another member of the DRN team, either within the next 30 days, again, before the end of the year, or perhaps want to wait until next year to implement, have a conversation. So again, we'll give just a couple more seconds to let folks answer. And again, Mike, it looks like within the next 30 days, to use a cliche, strike while the iron's hot, so to speak.
Appreciate that, Nick. Yeah, we certainly stand ready. We have a number of folks in Fort Worth who are able to answer questions and provide live demos, as well as myself. So we have a pretty solid team on the sales and support side. So we'll look forward to the challenge.
And if you do have a question for Mike Villanova of DRN here during the closing moments of our webinar, just again, use the chat function here on the Zoom platform to pose your question. And Mike, just a couple follow-ups in the meantime. You rounded out your prepared presentation mentioning the real-time alerts about impounds, stolen vehicles, export issues, and now even blending in body shop data from collision and repair operations. Just again, how can this information help businesses during the collection process? And again, how quickly are these alerts generated?
Well, thanks for that question, whoever that may be. But so we recommend that you put your entire portfolio in loss alerts to monitor for any of those activities. We run that activity generator every day, 5-6 days a week. And if we see a match that comes from our provider in any one of those categories, that is immediately created an alert, what we call a loss alert, in your portfolio, in the loss alerts tab of your portfolio, so that when you come in the next morning, it's going to be there. So typically, anything that we see the night before is going to pop in there the next morning if we have it. And it's really around impounds. I always like to talk to folks about client satisfaction. You see somebody's car got stolen, depending on the size of your portfolio or auto portfolio, it might be worth a reach out saying, hey, I saw your car got stolen. Is there anything we can do to help help that process out? Or on the impound, certainly on the impounds where it's costing you, depending on where in the country that has been impounded, could be anywhere from $40 to $50 to $60, $75 a day. If I can help you save, or if we can help you save, 7 to 10 days of impound fees by taking immediate action the next day, you can do the math of how many impounds you have times how many days you may save.
Absolutely. Sounds like a great way to start a day on a daily to-do list of checking for those potential alerts. And a question that has come in from one of our webinar attendees, Mike, and a quick nuts and bolts clarification question is, again, DRN data's global presence and footprint. Again, where all is the data being collected? How large of a presence does the company have again?
Well, contingent 48 states is really our focus. We haven't quite gotten down to outside of the 48 states. We're looking at Canada. We haven't gotten there yet. We're doing a little bit in Alaska, nothing in Hawaii yet, but we're pretty strong. With 600 plus agents spread across those 48 states, we've got fairly solid coverage. If you think of the Verizon heat map, that's exactly, we have agents in every major metropolitan area and even in some of those sparsely populated areas as well. Excellent.
Another topic wanted to raise with you, Mike, and certainly we here at Cherokee Media Group, we certainly touch on this topic often when it comes to auto financing and other used car businesses, talking about fraud. It seems like it's infiltrating our lives in so many ways. But how does DRN's analytics platform potentially identify and flag that potential fraud at the earlier stages of delinquency? What are some specific patterns or indicators that you and the team are able to watch and monitor?
Yeah, we certainly, fraud is always everybody's big challenge. If you had the answer, you probably, the $64,000 question type thing. But right off the bat, if you start to monitor your delinquency and we're not able to plate that delinquency, it's immediate red flag. We plate at a very high rate as you add VINs into your portfolio. But if we can't plate that, that's the earliest indication that there's something that just not right. So that would be a red flag fraud alert. Others are looking at potentially the difference between who or where the vehicle is plated versus where you believe that member is or that borrower is. If those are different, then you may have some issues coming around there. But again, it's early detection before you can take and use other tools that kind of lead you down that path.
Excellent. So again, the voice you're hearing is our special expert for our webinar titled Use of LPR to Streamline Collections and Recovery Efforts with Mike Villanova of DRN. And Mike, another question that's come in from one of our attendees. It sounds like potentially it's a current DRN client that's looking to get the implementation in motion. Who might be the best person to coordinate that effort with at the company? How, if someone's ready to get started, how can they do so?
They can certainly send me an email. My email should be right there. And I can direct them to the right folks because we kind of assign them based on sizes within our organization. Again, we have a good internal support team and client account management team down in Fort Worth. So we'll divvy them up, and hopefully there's a lot of them because they like to stay busy. So we can take care of everybody that has that.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you could go to your next screen there, Mike, we will show the contact information for Mike and the company. Again, their website is drndata.com to get started. So as we wrap up our live webinar today, and we thank you so much for joining us. And just a reminder that we have recorded today's session, so keep watch of your inbox for a link to that recording so you can review the information and pass it along to your teammates to make the best decision possible for your organization. And Mike, just to round us out during our time today, as you've referenced throughout your presentation, again, just how does the DRN Insights Plus and the LPR analytics platform validate and score account information? Just the perhaps way of saying it, the final deliverable. How can DRN be of assistance to their client base?
Risk scoring really, as well as ties right into our address score. So the address score is how often we've seen that vehicle at a particular location. The more it's seen, we also have the number of times that a spotter car or an agent with their camera kits have gone by those locations, and we assign those scores. So if we can do risk scoring a couple different ways. One way is you give us an address and we'll score that address based on where we've seen the vehicle. We'll either give it mile parameters. Think of a bullseye as you go out, like an archery type bullseye. The further out, the more risk you may be taking on where you expect them to be versus where we see them. Some folks like to say if they're within 25 miles, we're comfortable. If they're outside of 25, if they're 50 miles, 100 miles, that's kind of a red flag. So we tweak that in our risk scoring process. It's really, we work with each client individually on some of those.
That's Mike Villanova, Senior Sales Solution Manager at DRN, our expert for today's webinar, use of LPR to streamline collections and recovery efforts. Mike, thank you again for all the great information. It sounds like it could be interesting times ahead, but perhaps armed with great data and information, the auto finance world can tackle whatever might be ahead. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Nick, and everybody at Cherokee Media. We appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about it.
Absolutely. And again, we thank you so very much for joining us. And on behalf of all of us at Cherokee Media Group, my name is Nick Zulovich. We thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you again next time.